Hi folks, and welcome to episode 2 of Backyard Fac. Today we're going to be talking about the 7 foundation strokes and the hand positions that you will use for each one. The question about hand positions was brought up by subscriber Steve. Thank you for the question. And so let's get right to it. First foundation stroke is the rebound stroke. And the rebound stroke looks like this on the right hand, and it looks like this on the left hand. So let's talk about hand positions. First of all, your hand position should be all your fingers along the stick, and for this entire stroke, you shouldn't leave, your fingers should not leave the stick. So when you're doing this, very slow motion here, your stick will hit and then bounce back up, and those fingers will stay on the stick at all times. Now for the right hand grip, if your thumb is on top, that will provide a little bit of an impediment because the stick won't be able to rebound as much. Your thumb will kind of stop it from rebounding. So we have built in to our right hand grip this nice little space here where the stick will be able to return. There's lots of room for that stick to move if this is open here. So, whoops. Nice little rebound strokes on the right hand. And of course, the stroke is generated by the wrist and these fingers. Now, on the left hand, the stroke is generated by your thumb and your wrist. But when you make the initial impact, your stick starting from here will come down, and then as the stick comes up, your whole left hand will need to rotate back out, and your thumb will need to do this little escaping thumb thing. So that thumb and your whole hand will need to rotate back out like that. All right? And when you do that left stroke, when the stick comes up and rebounds, it will settle right back into the cradle here in your left hand, all right? Between your middle finger and your ring finger. All right, so that's the rebound stroke. Next, we have the control stroke, and the control stroke is sort of the opposite of a rebound. The stick will come down and then will stay down. So right hand, left hand, right, left. And the thing that allows the stick to stay down is that your hand is not going to follow the stick back up on your right. And your hand is also not going to rotate out. Your thumb's not going to escape on your left hand. And when the stick comes down, it will impact. There's your impact there, and then the stick will come to rest right on that pad of your right hand. And similar to the right hand, where that pad is where the stick ends up, your stick will end up in the cradle of your left hand. And if you don't let your thumb escape and you just keep your hand in regular position there, your stick should end up about an inch above the pad. All right? So next we have the ghost stroke, which is very, very, very quiet stroke. And the ghost stroke isn't really played, it's more of a drop. So you have your sticks about an inch above the pad, and you'll simply drop it. Now, when you drop it, your stick will hit the pad and then leave the back pad of your hand there, and then will immediately return. There's just a tiny little amount of time during that drop where the stick will leave that back pad of your hand. The left stick, there's just a little tiny bit of time right on the impact where the stick will leave the cradle and again, it's more of a drop. You can see that the stick just leaves the cradle momentarily there. All right, right, left, right, left, right, left. So that's the ghost stroke. Next, we have a stroke that many of you are familiar with. We talked about it last week on the first episode of Backyard Fact. That is the buzz stroke. So the buzz stroke, very, very important with the buzz stroke. It is generated not with the wrist, but from a pivot at your elbow. And what happens is that pivot from your elbow will come up, and then your stick will stay attached to the back of your hand here. Stick will stay there until it impacts. And when it impacts, then it will leave. At this point, you're going to engage that finger right there, your middle finger. And when you engage that middle finger, that will provide a little bit of a spring. Use that finger as a spring, and that will give you a nice buzz stroke. Now, if you engage that finger too much, if there's too much pressure applied to this finger here, you'll get this. And that is a crush buzz. That's not really what we're going for. In order to achieve a nice roll sound, you want to engage that finger, but not too much. All right? If you don't engage it enough, you get that. That's a little bit loosey-goosey. We're not going for that either. We're going for a nice buzz stroke right in the middle of those two things. So in the left hand will come up, pivot from the elbow again, right from here. When the stick comes down, it will leave the cradle, at which point this thumb will engage as a spring, and you'll get a nice soft attack that way. Do not do this as wrist strokes. If you do that, you'll get this really sort of attacky buzz sound. And if you try to do a drum roll with this sort of really harsh buzz with the wrist, you'll end up getting something like that. It's really too pulsy. So that's why we use this elbow here and this elbow here as pivot points. And as those speed up, then you get a nice full roll sound. That's the buzz stroke. So next we have the dead stroke, and the dead stroke is used sometimes on its own in more advanced scores. In sort of grade 4, grade 3 level scores, you'll play a lot of drags that incorporate a dead stroke. So the dead stroke is not played so much as it is placed. And when you are doing a dead stroke, you want to have this stick against the pad of that hand at all times. It won't leave. So when you do that, and you start it from a height of about an inch maybe, you'll get that nice placement, right? Same thing on the left hand, the stick will remain in the cradle. And some gentle pressure here, not really pressure, but just you want that thumb to be sort of firmly on there. You really want to avoid this. That's too much pressure for the thumb. And you see, when I do that, the stick actually leaves the cradle and it gives a buzz. And again, that's not what we're going for. We're going for one sound. And the stick will stay on the back of the hand here, and the stick will stay in the cradle here to get that nice, soft dead stroke sound. All right. Next, we have the upstroke. Now, the upstroke I would describe as the hot stove element stroke. And we probably shouldn't do this, but we probably have done this at some time in our lives. You go to see if an element on the stove is hot. Ow. Right? And you get that upward motion. Now, on the right hand, that motion is generated by the elbow again. So, that upstroke, it's a very quiet stroke, but then the stick is brought up, just like you're touching that hot stove. On the left, same thing. generated by the elbow, and the stick will stay almost exclusively on the back of the hand the whole time with the right hand, and it will stay in the cradle on the left hand. Okay, that's the upstroke. And finally, we have the double stroke. So the double stroke is similar to the buzz stroke in the way that you pivot from the elbow, from both elbows, right and left, and the stick is going to stay against the back of the hand until the initial impact of the first note of the double. So this is one motion, and the stick will go down. It will then leave the back of the hand here. This finger, the middle finger, will engage. The stick will come up. It'll hit again, and then the stick will come to rest again on the back of the hand. So it's one motion with two notes. So the only time that the stick leaves the back of the hand is when those notes are hitting. Immediately after those notes have hit on the right hand, the stick returns to the back of the hand here. Same thing with the left hand. The stick will leave the cradle on its initial impact, so it'll hit first. The stick will leave the cradle. Your thumb spring will engage. It'll hit, and then return to the cradle again. I'll just show you that one more time. So double, pivot from the elbow, it comes down, it leaves the cradle, thumb spring engages, it hits again, and then returns to the cradle. So on the left hand, double there, double there, put these all in a row, and you get that nice open double stroke roll. Great for playing anything fast like paradiddles or roughs or anything like that, Swiss roughs. So that is the 7 foundation strokes, complete with all hand positions. Hopefully that helps you with those 7 foundation strokes. And until next time, happy drumming.